round. And for 49ers fans, and for me, and I think for everybody that watches football, pays attention to football, I think we all have the same question right now. What's happening with Jimmy Garoppolo? Where do you go from here? What's the plan? And did the original plan blow up in your face? Because as you look at this, and we did some of this last Friday, when Deshaun Watson was traded, we looked at the teams that were quarterback needy, and we painted a scenario in which Garoppolo was left without a home. A very real scenario, I said on Friday. And now you push it to today. And I'll tell you, that very real scenario of Jimmy not having a home is even more real right now than it was last Friday at 4 o'clock. Let's look through this, okay? You ready? As you got into today, 4 teams needed a quarterback. Seattle, New Orleans, Indianapolis, Carolina. What happened today? Well, Ryan goes to Indy, which opens up a quarterback slot in Atlanta. That is until about 20 minutes later, we found out that Marcus Mariota signed a 2-year deal for about $19 million to go to Atlanta. So now Ryan goes to Indy. He fills that void. Atlanta fills their void with Mariota. And then Winston re-signs with the Saints. So now, when you look at this, New Orleans, Indy, take them off the list. You woke up this morning, there were 4 teams that needed quarterbacks. Half of them off the list as of this afternoon. Seattle, Carolina. Those are the 2 teams that you can look at. Those are the 2 teams that need quarterbacks right now. They need quarterbacks. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We know Carolina does not want, on any terms, they do not want Sam Darnold to be the guy this year. They need a quarterback. We know David Tepper, their owner, his desire is to bring in a top quarterback. They tried for Watson. They swung and missed. Carolina needs a quarterback. Seattle needs a quarterback. Drew Lock is not going to be that guy. Here's the tough part for San Francisco. And here is why it's a very real scenario playing out that Jimmy could stay in San Francisco. As much, if you told me that a month ago, I would have told you you were crazy. But you've got Seattle and Carolina left. Well, you have Baker Mayfield and Garoppolo as the 2 veteran quarterbacks that are out there. So you've got 2 teams that need a quarterback. You've got 2 quarterbacks available. On top of that, you have the draft. The draft is still an option. What happens if Carolina wants to draft their next guy? They're paying Darnold, right? What if they say, let's just try to get through this with Darnold. We'll draft the future at the quarterback position. That's how we're going to deal with this. What happens if Seattle wants to draft a quarterback with the picks they have after dealing Russell Wilson to Denver? So the draft is still an option. Jordan Love. What's going to happen with Jordan Love in Green Bay? Is Jordan Love going to be available? If so, Seattle, Carolina, one of those 2 teams, are they interested? Now, there was a report earlier today that said John Lynch was telling teams around the league that he had in hand an offer of 2 second-round picks for Garoppolo. I call BS. I do not think that is the case. I do not think Lynch has 2 second-round picks in hand. Because if he had 2 second-round picks in hand for Garoppolo, Garoppolo would be gone. Especially as soon as you saw Matt Ryan get traded for a 3rd-round pick. I mean, you would have to circle back to that team and say, 2 seconds, yes, deal's done. Congratulations. Enjoy Jimmy Garoppolo. It reeks of desperation from Lynch trying to drive up the price because he knows the price is not being met. The only other thing I could think of, if it's not just straight up BS, the only other thing that I could possibly think of is that the Seahawks are the team that offered the 2 second-round picks, and the Niners don't want to trade Garoppolo in division. That's the only possible thing that would make sense as to why Lynch would say no to 2 second-round picks. But I don't think that's the case. I think Lynch is full of it. And I don't even know if, would you trade him to Seattle if it was 2 second-round picks? I would. I'm not afraid of Jimmy Garoppolo. If I'm the Niners, I'm not afraid of that guy. I'm just not. I've got a really good defense. I'm not worried or panicked over Garoppolo going to a division rival. If it's 2 second-round picks, if it's a trash offer, then I wouldn't deal him to just deal him. But if Seattle gives you the best offer on the table, 2 seconds, yeah, I'm taking the 2 seconds, and I'm saying we'll deal with Jimmy Garoppolo in Seattle for the next year.
And also, wouldn't you be happy to face Jimmy Garoppolo if you're the 49ers? Might almost be a selling point to face him 2 times.
Hey, you know what? If we trade Jimmy G to Seattle, we got him twice. They start knocking elbows. Shanahan and Lynch, knocking each other's elbows, rubbing backs. What do you think about that? Nick Cattle Show, Sports 1140 KHTK. So the question is this. With the Niners, was this a miscalculation, or does Garoppolo just have zero value? I could buy both, by the way. You could talk me into believing that this was a complete miscalculation by the front office. You could also talk me into believing that nobody wants Jimmy G. Either of them could be true. And you could actually say both of them could be true. Because, maybe the miscalculation was they thought that Jimmy had more value than he had. It's the combination of the both worlds. Because what you see play out, all of these teams that needed a quarterback decided Jimmy G wasn't the answer, right? Pittsburgh had an absolute need. They said, nope, we'd rather have Mitchell Trubisky. Atlanta had an absolute need after trading Ryan. They said, nope, we'd rather have Marcus Mariota. The Saints said, nope, we'd rather have Winston. The Texans said, nope, we'd rather have Davis Mills. Those teams went with the cheaper option. All of those guys are going to make less money on their contracts, guaranteed-wise, than what you got to have on the books for Jimmy G. So a lot of these teams went to the cheaper option, said, how much better is Garoppolo than Trubisky? How much better is Garoppolo than Mariota? How much better is Garoppolo than Winston? How much better? Telling you, the league looks at Garoppolo as an average at best quarterback. That's what
could have been brought to my attention yesterday.
It was. Just the Niners weren't listening, apparently. And then you had Washington, Indianapolis. Washington made the trade for Carson Wentz instead of Garoppolo. Indianapolis, looking at Baker, looking at Garoppolo, traded for Matt Ryan instead of those guys. Maybe it's the injury. Diana Rossini of ESPN said that Indianapolis was concerned about the injury and not so much that the shoulder injury was going to keep Garoppolo from playing games this season, but they were concerned about Garoppolo coming in July and trying to physically get ready while mentally learning the playbook, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe, or maybe that's just being nice to Jimmy G. And then you had the Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson dominoes fall. So Tampa, Brady, right? Denver got Wilson. Cleveland got Watson, which opens up a Baker trade to somewhere. If you're San Francisco and you're sitting there right now, you're stuck. You're in big-time trouble. You have no leverage. If you thought you had leverage, you have zero leverage. Because Carolina and Seattle are going to look at you. They're going to pick up the phone. They're going to say, hey, look, we'll give you a 4th-round pick for Jimmy G. Matt Ryan just went for a 3rd, okay? Matt Ryan went for a 3rd. We'll give you a 4th. I can't imagine they're going to give you anything better than that. And Carolina, Seattle could say, we'll call Cleveland. Baker Mayfield's going to make less money than Jimmy G. He's less money on the cap this year than Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll go trade for Baker for a year instead of Jimmy Garoppolo for a year. I'll go to the draft. I'll draft one of these young guys. San Francisco right now has zero leverage. They're left looking at this and wondering, should we pay $25 million on the books for a backup quarterback? And they've already stuck themselves with really the cap hit for all intents and purposes. If this goes on for another week, any other free agency activity is affected by this. Now, of course, you can maneuver money around, but you're maneuvering around that money because you were unable to get rid of Garoppolo. If you got rid of Garoppolo, you would not have to restructure George Kittle's contract, for example. You could easily go and get the Debo Samuel and Bosa contract extensions done. And for people saying, oh, just bring him back. Really? You want to bring him back? First of all, he's not very good. Second of all, you want to bring him back with Trey Lance in this locker room? You're begging for guys to start picking sides. You do not want to do that. You have to poop or get off the pot with Trey Lance and Garoppolo in this situation. You've got to ride with Lance or invite disaster by keeping Garoppolo. It's amazing. I mean, Garoppolo might end up being back with the Niners or being cut. Want your thoughts. 916-339-1140 is the text line. Phone line is 1-800-920-1140. You can follow us, of course, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Sports 1140 KHTK. And don't forget, you can download the app in your app store, Sports 1140 KHTK.